Hello everybody and welcome down to a breakdown on the SEN 35 form. So what is the SEN 35 form? The SEN 35 form is a form that you fill in to register an appeal with tribunal. There is two different forms to register an appeal. The SEN 35 is specifically for when you disagree with a decision where the local authority have made relating to refusing to issue an EHCP, the contents of a placement of an EHCP, ceasing to maintain an EHC plan, or refusing to assess an EHC plan. Refusal to issue is a different form, which there is another bite-sized look at or breakdown at how that form is filled out. But today we're looking at the SEN 35 form for when we're disagreeing with the local authority's decision around issuing a plan, contents and placement, ceasing to maintain and refusing to reassess. So section 1 is the details of the child, so name, date of birth, male, female, prefer not to say, etc. Section 2 is the details as you are making. Quite often it's the parents that are making their appeal, but if it's the young person it would be the young person's details, but more often than not at this part it would be your details because you're making the appeal on behalf of the child or young person. Section 3 is the details of any other parent carers that a child or young person has. So for example, if there's you, like there's me and my husband, I make the appeal on my husband's details and then go in section 3 because he still wants to be a part of the appeal. Section 4 is the section for you if you have a representative. So when we're talking about representatives, we're talking about barristers, solicitors, paid counsel, paid advocates, a person who could, if that's what you wanted, and they do, represent you here in the hearing itself. Section 5 is about an advocate. So an advocate would support with paperwork and communication throughout the appeal. However, you wouldn't put the person down as an advocate if you wanted them to represent you in the hearing itself, because advocates, this section is relating to an advocate that is going to be part of the communication paperwork process only, and in the guidance it specifically states that the advocate wouldn't be able to represent you in tribunal. When I say guidance, on the form itself on the right hand side there's a few notes and it tells you that. Section 6 asks who you would let the tribunals communicate throughout the appeal process. If you have a representative, automatically it would be the representative that gets all communication throughout the process, and it would be down to them to share it with you. If you've got an advocate, or there's you and your partner, or there's another person that's supporting you, you can ask that the tribunal communicates with that person instead of you, or you can put yourself down. It's whatever you choose. Section 7 asks about any other parent that has parental responsibility. So there are some cases where parents aren't living together, but they have equal parental responsibility. One parent might decide to put a tribunal case in, and the other parent might decide they don't want anything to do with it. However, the local authority and tribunal have a duty to ensure that person who has parental responsibility is aware of the tribunal and is aware of what's going on, and they're happy for it all to be happening, or they get a chance to have an input if that's what they want. One of the questions does ask if you have informed them about the tribunal, and it asks if you haven't, why you haven't done, because they might be reasoning why you haven't. Section 8 is asking you about what decision the LA has made that you do not agree with, so it'll ask you to tick boxes at this stage on whether it's refusal to issue, whether it's about B, F, I, refusal to reassess, or they're ceasing to maintain. In section 8 they also ask you if the appeal, the decision that's been made was the result of an annual review or not. Section 9 is asking you if you disagree with the placement named on the EHC plan, and if you disagree it asks about the school you are looking for. So basically what it means is you don't need a school at this stage to name. But they're asking you, well, if you disagree with the school that's on the plan and you don't have a school, what kind of school are you looking for? So are you looking for specialist? Are you looking for mainstream? If you're looking for specialist, are you looking for autistic specific? Are you looking for a social, emotional, mental health? Are you looking for a MLD school? Are you looking for a SPLD school? You know, it's just asking for a brief description of what you're looking for in school. If you do have a school named, it'll ask you, not named, sorry, you do have a school you'd like to be named, then it's asking you to detail what that school is, and if you've spoken to them and what they have stated. Section 10 asks you to give them a description of what you're appealing across sections B and F. So you don't need to give a full-on description of everything. It's just a description and an idea of what, you know, is the needs missing, is it specification, quantification issue, what, you know, is it provisions missing, do you disagree with how it's wording, is it not reflected well, is it all wrong? You know, you just need to give a description of all that, but you don't need to literally write out every single one of your issues at this moment in time. Just give them an idea of what it is. Section 11 is when you're asking for the tribunal to make recommendations on the health and social care sections. So you don't have to ask for them to make recommendations. So this would then, if you do tick yes, it would turn into an extended appeal. Now, when you are looking at recommendations for health and social care, it is also a good thing to remember that the tribunal can only make, recommendations. They can't actually make, you know, they can't just turn around and say this is the amendments we're saying has to be done like they do on B and F. They can only make recommendations, and then ultimately at the end it is down to the local authority on if they are going to take on them health and social recommendations. Section 12 is asking if you have a mediation certificate, and if you do not, why have you not got one? So there is one situation where you don't need a mediation certificate to move forward, and that's if it's just a Section I appeal, so you're just appealing the placement. But you don't need it, so you just put, don't need it, it's just a Section I appeal. However, any other appeal, to appeal you're supposed to have a mediation certificate. You know, there could be a valid reason why you don't have one, therefore you'd write that if you don't have one. However, in every other appeal it would be an expectation mostly to have that mediation certificate. Section 13 is asking about the dates on your mediation certificate and the final letter. And that's because there's timings and deadlines to when you have to appeal. So you've got 2 months from the end, from the date on the final letter, and 30 days from the date on the mediation certificate, and it's whichever date is the latest, which is the final end date. If you are outside these timings, that does not necessarily mean you cannot ultimately appeal. There is some reasons that are valid when you are submitting a late appeal where they are accepted. Sections 14 and 15 is asking if you've got any other appeals and court cases open. And the reason they ask this is because they do try to bring whatever they can together to impact families less and to deal with things in the, you know, a most succulent, concise way as possible. So if there is, you do have more than one appeal open for more than one child, sometimes they can bring it together and deal with it on the same day. Section 16 is asking what type of hearing you want. So most often than not, it's a video online hearing. It's extremely rare for it to be an in-person hearing anymore. So it's asking if you can access a video link and go on it, and it's asking if you are okay with that. It also asks you if you would consider a paper hearing, and it is down to personal choice, and for me it comes down to whatever evidence you've got and how strong it is. And it also gives you the option of ticking if a early available date comes available, would you like to be considered, which I always tick yes on. Section 17 is asking if you need any support during the hearing. It's things like processing times, breaks, interpreter, anything that you may need to make sure that you are able to fully participate in the hearing. So they want you to be able to get your case across in a way that works for you. They want you to be able to feel like you've been heard, that you've had a chance to say everything that you want to say, and the whole idea is if there's anything at all reasonable adjustment wise that they can do for that, then they'll look at doing it. Declaration and supporting evidence. So the last part of the form is where you sign to declare that you've provided accurate, and then the last part. So the last part of the form to sign it, and then the real last part, the table, is for you to put all the evidence and information that you've got that you'll be sending with the form to register the appeal. So what do you do now? So one of the things to be aware is the very minimum to register appeal you need is the EHCP if you've got one. Obviously, if it's refused to issue, then not. The final letter, the mediation certificate, any evidences that you might have at this stage, and if you've got an EHCP, then it also needs to include all of the reports in Section K. Then once you've got all this together, you complete the form, you submit it with all the evidence and the information you documented in Section 11, and you submit for registration, and your email sen@justice.gov.uk and write new appeal in the subject.